just feels very frivolous right now.
What does?
Yes.
Frivolous.
Yeah.
What?
In light of.
What do you mean frivolous?
Like who cares about War and Peace?
Honestly, this shit is happening all the time, constantly for the last hundreds of years. So
Yeah.
It's just our willingness to look at it that changes. It's not about what's going on. Meaning everything that one does is always
Right. Yeah, it's just about the lens. It's done.
I'm a little resentful of the fact that there's a curfew.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Is it meant to prevent us? Well, obviously, it's like meant to stifle it,
Mm-hmm.
but we're allowed to protest.
There's a curfew.
Yeah.
Not between certain hours, I guess.
That's crazy. A curfew?
I mean, it's, I guess, to prevent, like, property damage. It makes me infuriated when people are like, violence is not the answer. Everybody needs to stop. It makes me look incensed. Such fucking stupid underpinnings to that, as if people want to do this. As if this is everyone's preferred way of going about something. The headphone jack's not in. Or at least it doesn't look.
Okay. Well, do you want to talk about it, or do you want to talk about something else? Like we could talk about it.
You know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything because I'm afraid to talk about it.
I know you're not.
I don't really have anything to say about anything. You think a curfew is surprising?
I don't think it's surprising. I wasn't expecting that.
What did you think it was about?
The curfew to me just like raises certain ideas.
It raises certain ideas.
Like it's one, I don't know, that we're in lockdown. Like that we're not allowed to leave our homes. We're not allowed to protest. Like that's pretty scary. It's pretty scary. Um, and I guess right now I just feel like very sad and scared. And normally when that happens, I just get really quiet.
What is sad and scary? Or what parts of it? I mean, obviously, the whole thing.
Yeah, all of it. The fact that it does have to come to this. And I'm not good at being angry. It's like I don't have access to that. So
Yeah, you do. When it comes to certain things. That's what you bald people are. Mostly one person. um,
Did you get your handstand today?
My hands done?
Your handstand.
Oh, I worked on it. I don't know if I'll do next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'll do the one next weekend.
Mm-hmm. It's disappointing.
Hmm?
You weren't into it?
I don't know, I just don't. I guess I don't really know what it's gonna require for me to get to where I want to go. So it feels silly to just be. I guess there are a couple of useful things, and yeah, no.
I did yoga for the first time today
You do
in like months. Yeah.
in the morning, or
Like in the afternoon. It was nice. Like I didn't follow any class or whatever. I just did it on my own. It's like, all right, I remember how to do this. And I think I can like breathe into it more than I used to be able to.
that's cool.
Like people often talk about yoga being like, oh, it's like the one place where they like connect to themselves and blah blah blah. I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
So you're connected to yourself.
I guess so.
That's cool.
It was like I could give myself that freedom and not try to force anything, like let like the posture, let the stretch, whatever, like unfurl itself.
We did like fucking half pigeon shit. Like 40 minutes in. And I thought I was gonna break. I've done none of this. And everything that I've been doing every day the last several weeks has been the opposite. My heel was like here.
Oh,
like so close. I thought it was gonna snap in half. My brain was gonna snap in half. And she was like, if you want some more, I was like, then you can like come up and go into like a small back bend and grab your back leg to do that. And I was like doing it. And she was like, well, that's lovely. And I was like, this isn't, oh, it's not enough, so I'm gonna do this. I just had to get the fuck off the floor, like, away from that place. It was terrible. I fucking hate pigeon. Yeah. That's like the most contrarian thing maybe about you.
what?
That you like hypnosis of all the contrarian things.
Because they say that all your emotions are in your hips.
Because they're horrible. Because whatever they say, they're horrible. They're the fucking worst. Yeah, I think they are in your hips. I mean, I guess not for everybody, but Like my friend Laura has always had extremely open hips, so it probably would not be hard and never have been hard for her. But it wasn't the kind of thing that she ever had to work on.
Mm. It was just there.
Yeah. So if she liked it, I wouldn't be like. She just seems like she's built for it. Where her emotions go.
Right? They must be at different places for different people.
Maybe, but
Like maybe there's some
like a
general
lot of
rules,
people
but there's
hate hip
exceptions.
openness.
Yeah.
It seems like most people, based on the way people talk about it in class and stuff. It's like offensive. I get like offended.
So is that your least favorite position?
Yeah.
Pigeon?
Yeah. I don't even have to think about it.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Just because it feels so terrible?
Yes.
Oh, but maybe that does make sense. Even if like we stay on the emotion track, it's like watching a sad movie.
What about what? I missed the whole sentence.
Like if it's a hip opener, you're like, I don't need more of that.
I just don't understand the point of feeling like so much worse in life. Which sounds really stupid, and I do all kinds of things that arguably like life's too short for bitching. I need a shirt that says that. People will think I'm in a fraternity. They'll be like, yeah, bruh.
I think I hate Utkatasana. It's chair, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's my least favorite.
Oh, wow.
Hate it.
Why do you hate it?
I hate the shape of it.
I mean, do you hate what the shape feels like, or you hate looking at it?
Both. It's awkward to look at. It's awkward to do. And then you're supposed to be like, as if, like it's supposed to be. It seems like it's supposed to be a very strong pose, and I feel crippled in that moment.
Lots of people look like dongles doing it.
Yeah.
But I've seen it look strong. Fierce. I think the arms up thing is very, like, people just need to shelve that.
Yeah.
For a decade at least. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I also never know if I'm doing it right.
Right. I feel like there's a handful of poses that no one ever knows what they're doing in. Or it feels like there's a lot of misinformation.
Yeah. Can I just jump into the book? Okay. So we started the epilogue.
Seems
Yeah,
a
we
lot
start-
like chapters.
It's a lot like a chapter,
I mean, books.
except I guess the only difference I can really tell is the war's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it.
So we're on chapter 6 of the first epilogue.
Yeah. And what we read yesterday was,
bunch of history stuff.
yeah, a lot of history.
And then about the shitty situation the rock stars are in.
Right. Yeah, so there was kind of like a sum up of Napoleon as a character, and that he was just playing his part, which of course we've heard before.
A sum up of him as a character?
Yeah, like I didn't know anything about his backstory,
What backstory?
about him being in Africa, and like,
Oh. Those were the wars, though. That wasn't him.
that wasn't him.
Oh, no, that was like the beginning of his military.
Yeah, but before he was like an emperor, before he like rose to power.
Yeah, I thought of it as the beginning of his military success.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that I remember. I didn't think of that as backstory, so I thought I slept through a whole section,
Oh,
which is still possible.
Right. Yeah, it was just a lot of like Napoleon didn't create Napoleon. Other people did. And then he was just there. Almost as if like if it hadn't been him it would have been someone else. And then
Nicholas has taken over as the man of the house in the Rostars thing because he died.
Yeah.
Leaving even more debt than anyone knew about. And the Countess is like in some deluded reality that is being protected by Nicholas and Sonia, and Natasha has not been heard of. She is in Petersburg with her husband, and Nicholas is hiding their poverty from his poverty and bad situation from them as well as from the Countess. Seems like the only one who knows how bad this situation is, other than Nicholas, is Sonia.
Yeah. Sonia's there. Pierre and Natasha did get married. Pierre lent some money to Nicholas, but doesn't really know the extent to the debt. And is that all?
I think so.
That's everything. Yeah.
Chapter 6. At the beginning of winter, Princess Mary came to Moscow. From reports current in town, she learned how the Rostovs were situated and how the son has sacrificed himself for his mother, as people were saying.
I never expected anything else of him, said Princess Mary to herself, feeling a joyous sense of her love for him. Remembering her friendly relations with all the Rostovs, which had made her almost a member of the family, she thought it her duty to go to see them, but remembering her relations with Nicholas and Voronezh, she was shy about doing so. Making a great effort, she did, however, go to call on them a few weeks after her arrival in Moscow.
Nicholas was the first to meet her, as the Countess's room could only be reached through his, but instead of being greeted with pleasure, as she had expected, at his first glance at her, his face assumed a cold, stiff, proud expression she had not seen on it before. He inquired about her health, led the way to his mother, and having sat there for 5 minutes, left the room.
When the princess came out of the countess's room, Nicholas met her again, and with marked solemnity and stiffness, accompanied her to the anteroom. To her remarks about his mother's health, he made no reply. What's that to you? Leave me in peace, his look seemed to say.
Why does she come prowling here? What does she want? I can't bear these ladies and all these civilities, said he aloud in Sonia's presence, evidently unable to repress his vexation after the princess's carriage had disappeared.
Oh, Nicholas, how can you talk like that? Cried Sonia, hardly able to conceal her delight. She is so kind, and Mamma is so fond of her.
Nicholas did not reply and tried to avoid speaking of the princess anymore. But after her visit, the old countess spoke of her several times a day.
She sang her praises, insisted that her son must call on her, expressed a wish to see her often, but yet always became ill-humored when she began to talk about her.
Ill-humored? Okay. Nicholas tried to keep silence when his mother spoke of the princess, but his silence irritated her.
She is a very admirable and excellent young woman, said she, and you must go and call on her. You would at least be seeing somebody, and I think it must be dull for you only seeing us.
But I don't in the least want to, Mamma.
You used to want to, and now you don't. Really, I don't understand you, my dear. One day you are dull, and the next you refuse to see anyone.
But I never said I was dull.
Why, you said yourself you don't want even to see her. She is a very admirable young woman, and you always liked her, and now suddenly you've got some notion or other in your head. You hide everything from me.
Not at all, Mamma.
If I were asking you to do something disagreeable now, but I only asked you to return a call, one would think mere politeness required it. Well, I've asked you, and now I won't interfere any more since you have secrets from your mother.
Well then, I'll go if you wish, okay?
Doesn't matter to me. I only wish it for your sake.
Nicholas sighed with his mustache and laid out the cards for a patience, trying to divert his mother's attention to another topic.
The same conversation was repeated next day, and the day after, and the day after that.
After her visit to the Rostovs and her unexpectedly chilly reception by Nicholas, Princess Mary confessed to herself that she had been right in not wishing to be the first to call.
I expected nothing else, she told herself, calling her pride to her aid. I have nothing to do with him, and I only wanted to see the old lady, who was always kind to me and to whom I am under many obligations.
But she could not pacify herself with these reflections. A feeling akin to remorse troubled her when she thought of her visit. Though she had firmly resolved not to call on the Rostovs again and to forget the whole matter, she felt herself all the time in an awkward position. And when she asked herself what distressed her, she had to admit that it was her relation to Rostov. His cold, polite manner did not express his feeling for her, she knew that, but it concealed something, and until she could discover what that something was, she felt that she could not be at ease.
One day in midwinter, when sitting in the schoolroom attending to her nephew's lessons, she was informed that Rostov had called. With a firm resolution not to betray herself and not show her agitation, she sent for Mademoiselle Bourienne and went with her to the drawing room.
Her first glance at Nicholas's face told her that he had come only to fulfill the demands of politeness, and she firmly resolved to maintain the tone in which he addressed her.
They spoke of the Countess's health, of their mutual friends, of the latest war news, and when the 10 minutes required by propriety had elapsed, after which a visitor may rise, Nicholas got up to say goodbye.
With Mademoiselle Bourienne's help, the princess had maintained the conversation very well, but at the very last moment, just when he rose, she was so tired of talking of what did not interest her, and her mind was so full of the question why she alone was granted so little happiness in life, that in a fit of absent-mindedness, she sat still, her luminous eyes gazing fixedly before her, not noticing that he had risen.
Nicholas glanced at her, and, wishing to appear not to notice her abstraction, made some remark to Mademoiselle Bourienne, and then, again, looked at the princess. She still sat motionless, with a look of suffering on her gentle face. He suddenly felt sorry for her, and was vaguely conscious that he might be the cause of the sadness her face expressed. He wished to help her and say something pleasant, but could think of nothing to say.
"Goodbye, princess," said he.
She started, flushed, and sighed deeply.
"Oh, I beg your pardon," she said, as if waking up. "Are you going already, Count? Well then, goodbye. Oh, but the cushion for the Countess."
Wait a moment, I'll fetch it, said Mademoiselle Bourienne, and she left the room.
They both sat silent, with an occasional glance at one another.
Yes, princess, said Nicholas at last with a sad smile. It doesn't seem long ago since we first met at Bogucharovo. But how much water has flowed since then? In what distress we all seemed to be then, yet I would give much to bring back that time. But there's no bringing it back.
Princess Mary gazed intently into his eyes with her own luminous ones as he said this. She seemed to be trying to fathom the hidden meaning of his words, which would explain his feeling for her.
Yes, yes, said she, but you have no reason to regret the past, Count. As I understand your present life, I think you will always recall it with satisfaction, because the self-sacrifice that fills it now—
I cannot accept your praise, he interrupted her hurriedly. On the contrary, I continually reproach myself, but this is not at all an interesting or cheerful subject.
His face again resumed its former stiff and cold expression, but the princess had caught a glimpse of the man she had known and loved, and it was to him that she now spoke.
I thought you would allow me to tell you this, she said. I had come so near to you and all your family that I thought you would not consider my sympathy misplaced, but I was mistaken. And suddenly her voice trembled. I don't know why, she continued, recovering herself, but you used to be different. And
There are 1,000 reasons why, laying special emphasis on the why. Thank you, Princess, he added softly. Sometimes it is hard.
So that's why. That's why. A voice whispered in Princess Mary's soul. No, it was not only that gay, kind, and frank look, not only that handsome exterior that I loved in him. I divined his noble, resolute, self-sacrificing spirit, too, she said to herself. Yes, he is poor now, and I am rich. Yes, that's the only reason. Yes, were it not for that. And remembering her former tenderness, and looking now at his kind, sorrowful face, she suddenly understood the cause of his coldness.
But why, Count? Why? She almost cried, unconsciously moving closer to him. Why? Tell me. You must tell me.
He was silent.
I don't understand your why, Count, she continued. But it's hard for me. I confess it. For some reason you wish to deprive me of our former friendship, and that hurts me.
There were tears in her eyes and in her voice. I have had so little happiness in life that every loss is hard for me to bear. Excuse me. Goodbye. And suddenly she began to cry and was hurrying from the room.
Princess, for God's sake, he exclaimed, trying to stop her. Princess!
She turned round. For a few seconds they gazed silently into one another's eyes, and what had seemed impossible and remote suddenly became very possible, inevitable, and near. Oops. Okay.
Wow. Okay. See, I can't call it.
What were you?
You remember when we finished reading?
You feel like she's an old maid?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's not.
No. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of ice and it just totally broke. 7. In the winter of 1813, Nicholas married Princess Mary.
Mm.
Oh! Didn't realize that was going to be that fast.
That's all it took. One
like
awkward
only
conversation.
A moment ago, they were standing in the living room.
Yeah.
And moved to Bald Hills with his wife, his mother, and Sonia.
So awkward.
Well, where else is she supposed to go?
I guess so. Can't she marry someone else?
No.
Get a life.
I know. She's so lame.
Within 4 years, he had paid off all his remaining debts without selling.
She had.
Yeah, pretty much. He paid them off, though, of all his remaining debts without selling any of his wife's property.
Oh, cool.
So how do you do that?
With her spare cash.
Right, all that cash. And having received a small inheritance on the death of a cousin, he paid his debt to Pierre as well.
In another 3 years, by 1820, he had so managed his affairs that he was able to buy a small estate adjoining Bald Hills and was negotiating to buy back Otrudno, that being his pet dream.
Having started farming from necessity, he soon grew so devoted to it that it became his favorite and almost his sole occupation. Nicholas was a plain farmer. He did not like innovations, especially the English ones, then coming into vogue. He laughed at theoretical treatises on estate management, disliked factories, the raising of expensive products, and the buying of expensive seed corn. It did not make a hobby of any particular part of the work on his estate. He always had before his mind's eye the estate as a whole, and not any particular part of it. The chief thing in his eyes was not the nitrogen in the soil, nor the oxygen in the air, nor manures, nor special plows, but that most important agent by which nitrogen, oxygen, manure, and plow were made effective, the peasant laborer. When Nicholas first began farming and began to understand its different branches, it was the serf who especially attracted his attention. The peasant seemed to him not merely a tool, but also a judge of farming and an end in himself. At first, he watched the serfs, trying to understand their aims and what they considered good and bad, and only pretended to direct them and give orders, while in reality, learning from them their methods, their manner of speech, and their judgment of what was good and bad. Only when he had understood the peasants' tastes and aspirations, had learned to talk their language, to grasp the hidden meaning of their words, and felt akin to them, did he begin boldly to manage his serfs, that is, to perform toward them the duties demanded of him. And Nicholas's management produced very brilliant results.
Guided by some gift of insight, on taking up the management of the estates, he at once unerringly appointed as bailiff, village elder, and delegate the very men the serfs would themselves have chosen, had they had the right to choose, and these posts never changed hands. Before analyzing the properties of manure, before entering into the debit and credit, as he ironically called it, he found out how many cattle the peasants had and increased the number by all possible means. He kept the peasant families together in the largest groups possible, not allowing the family groups to divide into separate households. He was hard alike on the lazy, the depraved, and the weak, and tried to get them expelled from the commune.
He was as careful of the sowing and reaping of the peasants' hay and corn as of his own, and few landowners had their crops sown and harvested so early and so well, or got so good a return as did Nicholas.
He disliked having anything to do with the domestic serfs, the drones, as he called them, and everyone said he spoiled them by his laxity. When a decision had to be taken regarding a domestic serf, especially if one had to be punished, he always felt undecided and consulted everybody in the house. But when it was possible to have a domestic serf conscripted instead of a land worker, he did so without the least hesitation. He never felt any hesitation in dealing with the peasants. He knew that his every decision would be approved by them all, with very few exceptions.
He did not allow himself either to be hard on or punish a man, or to make things easy for or reward anyone, merely because he felt inclined to do so. He could not have said by what standard he judged what he should or should not do, but the standard was quite firm and definite in his own mind.
Often, speaking with vexation of some failure or irregularity, he would say, "What can one do with our Russian peasants?" and imagine that he could not bear them.
Yet he loved our Russian peasants and their way of life with his whole soul, and for that very reason had understood and assimilated the one way and manner of farming which produced good results.
Countess Mary was jealous of this passion of her husband's, and regretted that she could not share it. But she could not understand the joys and vexations he derived from that world, to her so remote and alien. She could not understand why he was so particularly animated and happy when, after getting up at daybreak and spending the whole morning in the fields or on the threshing floor, he returned from the sowing or mowing or reaping to have tea with her. She did not understand why he spoke with such admiration and delight of the farming of the thrifty and well-to-do peasant, Matthew Ermishin, who, with his family, had carted corn all night, or of the fact that his, Nicholas's, sheaves were already stacked before anyone else had his harvest in. She did not understand why he stepped out from the window to the veranda and smiled under his mustache and winked so joyfully when warm, steady rain began to fall on the dry and thirsty shoots of the young oats, or why, when the wind carried away a threatening cloud during the hay harvest, he would return from the barn flushed, sunburned, and perspiring, with a smell of wormwood and gentian in his hair, and gleefully rubbing his hands would say, "Well, one more day in my grain, and the peasants will all what? Well, one more day, and my grain and the peasants will all be under cover."
Still less did she understand why he, kind-hearted and always ready to anticipate her wishes, should become almost desperate when she brought him a petition from some peasant men or women who had appealed to her to be excused some work. Why he, that kind Nicholas, should obstinately refuse her, angrily asking her not to interfere in what was not her business. She felt he had a world apart, which he loved passionately, and which had laws she had not fathomed.
Sometimes, when trying to understand him, she spoke of the good work he was doing for his serfs. Sometimes, when trying to understand him, she spoke of the good work he was doing for his serfs. He would be vexed and reply, "Not in the least. It never entered my head, and I wouldn't do that for their good. That's all poetry and old wives' talk. All that doing good to one's neighbors. What I want is that our children should not have to go begging. I must put our affairs in order while I am alive, that's all. And to do that, order and strictness are essential. That's all about it. That's all about it? That's all about it. That's all about it.
That's all about it.
That's all about it, said he, clenching his vigorous fist. I think he doth protest too much. And fairness, of course, he added, for if the peasant is naked and hungry and has only one miserable horse, he can do no good either for himself or for me.
And all Nicholas did was fruitful, probably just because he refused
Literally.
What?
Fruits.
Did you buy fruits?
He made a bunch of fruits. It's fruitful.
I don't know if you could have.
He might could have.
He could have. Did you watch that documentary?
The mushroom one?
No, I said you should watch this documentary called Fruit Hunters.
I don't remember getting anything like that.
Oh. Did I send it to you on Insta? I don't know. There's this documentary
doesn't
called
sound
Fruit
familiar.
Hunters.
Okay.
And it's just about this like club, I want to say. Is it about club? It's basically about people who love fruit, love like unknown exotic fruit that no one has ever heard of, and like go out and find it and like and want to taste it.
I've decided I'm going to have an acai bowl come what may. I don't have any bloobs.
You could have some of mine.
You have bloobs?
Mhm.
Come what may.
Fruitful. Probably just because he refused to allow himself to think that he was doing good to others for virtue's sake. His means.
It's weird. I must believe this is selfish.
I don't know. His means increased rapidly. Serfs from neighboring estates came to beg him to buy them, and long after his death, the memory of his administration was devoutly preserved among the serfs. He was a master, the peasants' affairs first and then his own. Of course, he was not to be trifled with either. In a word, he was a real master.
Chapter 8. One matter connected with his management sometimes worried Nicholas, and that was his quick temper together with his old hussar habit of making free use of his fists. At first he saw nothing reprehensible in this, but in the second year of his marriage, Jesus Christ, his view of that form of punishment suddenly changed.
Oh. Once in summer, he had sent for the village elder from Bogochurov. I once upon a time could say this.
Yeah, you seem to have a blank to the...
Is it
Bogucharovo, I think it is.
Bogochurovo? Churovo. Yes.
I mean, I don't know.
That's the O I'm missing.
I don't know. That's how you say
Bogucharovo.
it, but...
A man who had succeeded to the post when Drawn. Wait, Drawn is the. He wasn't like the mayor. He was some elder up there. And he was going to be
He was
traitor.
the guy who, yeah, how interesting. He was the guy who was like, refused to get the carriages together for Mary to leave, but put her in distress, from which Nicholas like retrieved her by being like, get the motherfucking carriages out, or I'll box you.
Drone died. And who was accused of dishonesty and various irregularities.
Oh, this is most irregular.
Yeah, you're just accused of irregular things?
This seems highly irregular.
Nicholas went out into the porch to question him, and immediately after the elder had given a few replies, the sound of cries and blows were heard. On returning to lunch, Nicholas went up to his wife, who sat with her head bent low over her embroidery frame, and as usual began to tell her what he had been doing that morning. Among other things, he spoke of the Bogochurovo elder. Countess Mary turned red and then pale, but continued to sit with head bowed and lips compressed, and gave her husband no reply.
Sorry.
Okay, great.
Yes, thanks.
Such an insolent scoundrel, he cried, growing hot again at the mere recollection of him. If he had told me he was drunk and did not see. What is the matter with you, Mary? He suddenly asked. Countess Mary raised her head and tried to speak, but hastily looked down again, and her lips puckered. Whatever is the matter, my dearest? The looks of the plain Countess Mary always improved. The looks of the plain Countess Mary always improved when she was in tears.
Ah!
No. When she's
Are we fucking
when
serious?
she's fine, she's
right
quite
now?
plain. But when she's crying, ugh! What a vision! What a goddess!
So angry.
She never cried from pain or vexation, but always from sorrow or pity. And when she wept, her radiant eyes acquired an irresistible charm.
I hate this conversation. charm. I feel like our chapters are not the same. I mean, our
Yeah.
oh, the moment Nicholas took her hand, yeah, she could no longer restrain herself and began to cry.
Nicholas, I saw it. He was to blame, but why do you... Nicholas! And she covered her face with her hands.
What the fuck's happening?
Mhm.
Okay. Nicholas said nothing. He flushed crimson, left her side, and paced up and down the room. He understood what she was weeping about, but could not in his heart at once agree with her that what he had regarded from childhood as quite an everyday event was wrong. Is it just sentimentality, old wives' tales, or is she right? He asked himself. Before he had solved that point, he glanced again at her face filled with love and pain, and he suddenly realized that she was right and that he had long been sinning against himself. He hit someone, I think.
Oh, Mary, he said softly, going up to her. It will never happen again. I give you my word, never. He repeated in a trembling voice like a boy asking for forgiveness.
The tears flowed faster still from the Countess's eyes. She took his hand and kissed it.
Nicholas, when did you break your cameo? She asked to change the subject, looking at his finger on which he wore a ring with a cameo of Lacoon's head. Lacoon's head.
Today, it was the same affair. Oh, Mary, don't remind me of it. And again he flushed. I give you my word of honor, it shan't occur again, and let this always be a reminder to me. And he pointed to the broken ring.
So he hit someone.
Well, that was easy.
Did he? Who did he hit?
Just some person. I don't know, I missed it.
I was reading and I was like, nothing.
I was too busy logging a meal I haven't eaten.
That's what you were doing?
I was like, I must log my acai bowl into history.
In advance.
Yeah.
So, wait, right? A man who has succeeded to the post. So not drone.
Blows were heard.
Yeah, okay. So not drone.
No.
Someone else
Yeah.
was accused of something, and there was a fight, and Nicholas joined, and then Mary's like, Nicholas, don't get into fights. That's all that's going on, right?
No, it's not a fight.
No?
No, he beat a self of his.
Okay. Did it say that somewhere?
Yeah. In the second paragraph of the chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nicholas went out into the porch to question him, and immediately after the elder had given a few replies, the sound of cries and blows were heard. On returning to lunch,
Okay.
he told her everything that happened, and she
Got
said,
it. He was the fight.
Yeah, there was no fight. I think he just
Right.
beat this
Okay.
guy.
Okay.
It was a one-sided affair.
Okay. Okay. And he pointed to the broken ring. After that, when in discussions with his village elders or stewards, the blood rushed to his face and his fists began to clench, Nicholas would turn the broken ring on his finger and would drop his eyes before the man who was making him angry. But he did forget himself once or twice within a 12 month. And then he would go and confess to his wife and would again promise that this should really be the very last time.
Mary, you must despise me, he would say. I deserve it.
You should go away at once. If you don't feel strong enough to control yourself, she would reply sadly, trying to comfort her husband.
That's very comforting. You need to get the fuck out of here. If you can't handle the heat,
She's
get
like
out of the
comforting.
goddamn kitchen. Oh, go away from the situation.
Oh. You should go. Go away at once.
Take a breather.
Right. If you can't control yourself, you just excuse yourself.
I thought she was like, you need to get up out of
Yeah,
my
I thought it
life
was
and
too.
my estate.
I thought it was like you need to go to the spa. Yeah.
Among the gentry of the province, Nicholas was respected but not liked. He did not concern himself with the interests of his own class, and consequently some thought him proud and others thought him stupid. The whole summer, from spring sowing to harvest, he was busy with the work on his farm. In autumn, he gave himself up to hunting with the same business-like seriousness, leaving home for a month or even two with his hunt. In winter, he visited his other villages or spent his time reading. The books he read were chiefly historical, and on these he spent a certain sum every year. He was collecting, as he said, a serious library, and he made it a rule to read through all the books he bought. He would sit in his study with a grave air, reading, a task he first imposed upon himself as a duty, but which afterward became a habit, affording him a special kind of pleasure and a consciousness of being occupied with serious matters. In winter, except for business excursions, he spent most of his time at home making himself one with his family and entering into all the details of his children's relations with their mother, his children. I like how we just gloss over that every single time.
Who cares about the children?
You're right. The harmony between him and his wife grew closer and closer, and he daily discovered fresh spiritual treasures in her.
From the time of his marriage, Sonia
Nothing is about to get real.
had lived in his house. Before that, Nicholas had told his wife that all that had passed between himself and Sonia, blaming himself and commending her. He had asked Princess Mary to be gentle and kind to his cousin. She thoroughly realized the wrong he had done Sonia, felt herself to blame toward her, and imagined that her wealth had influenced Nicholas's choice. She could not find fault with Sonia in any way and tried to be fond of her, but often...
Except for when she first looked at her.
Right? Yeah. She hates her. She is, for no reason. She's just...
Because she was a faker.
Yeah.
Because she was like...
Probably because Nicholas is in love with you.
I thought she could smell it.
Tried to be fond of her, but often felt ill will toward her, which she could not overcome.
Once she had a talk with her friend Natasha about Sonia and about her own injustice towards her.
You know, said Natasha, you have read the Gospels a great deal. There is a passage in them that just fits Sonia.
What? Said Countess Mary, surprised.
Okay, it's got all your answers. To him that hath...
Wait. Sonia's a man?
What? Yes. To him that hath shall be given, and from him that hath not shall be taken away. You remember? She is one that hath not. Why, I don't know. Perhaps she lacks egotism. I don't know, but from her,
there's like
away.
Something missing in this sentence to make my brain get it. To him that hath
shall be given.
Shall be given more?
Yeah.
And from him that hath
not shall be taken.
Not shall be taken away.
Oh, wait. Shall be taken away.
My brain just rolled.
So it's like,
you remember.
If you got it, you get more. If you don't got it, you get less.
You don't get less.
You don't? That hath not shall be taken away.
So if you have less, you get even less.
Yeah.
So the rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wonderful. It says that in the Bible?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay.
I don't know if it's like, and it's great.
And that's great.
Yeah.
And that's
it might just be stating something.
Yeah. Just be a statement or something.
Like an observation.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps she lacks egotism. I don't know, but from her is taken away. And everything has been taken away. Sometimes I am dreadfully sorry for her. Formerly, I very much wanted Nicholas to marry her, but I always had a sort of presentiment that it would not come off. She's a sterile flower,
Christ.
Like some strawberry blossoms. Sometimes I'm sorry for her, and sometimes I think she doesn't feel it as you or I would.
I don't understand that analysis at all, Natasha. Though Countess Mary told Natasha that those words in the gospel must be understood differently, yet looking at Sonia, she agreed with Natasha's explanation. It really seemed that Sonia did not feel her position trying, and had grown quite reconciled to her lot as a sterile flower. She seemed to be fond not so much of individuals as of the family as a whole. Like a cat, she had attached herself not to the people but to the home. She waited on the old countess, petted and spoiled the children. and was always ready to render the small services for which she had a gift. And all this was unconsciously accepted from her with insufficient gratitude. Jesus.
The country seat at Bald Hills had been rebuilt, though not on the same scale as under the old prince.
The buildings begun under straightened circumstances were more than simple. The immense house on the old stone foundations was of wood plastered only inside. It had bare deal floors and was furnished with very simple hard sofas, armchairs, tables, and chairs made by their own serf carpenters out of their own birch wood. The house was spacious and had rooms for the house serfs and apartments for visitors. Whole families of the Rostovs and Bolkonskys relations sometimes came to Bald Hills with 16 horses and dozens of servants and stayed for months. Besides that, 4 times a year, on the name days and birthdays of the hosts, as many as 100 visitors would gather there for a day or two. The rest of the year, life pursued its unbroken routine with its ordinary occupations and its breakfasts, lunches, dinners, and suppers provided out of the produce of the estate. Cool. I feel like something's going to happen because why are we just talking about how everything's fine?
Everything's great. It's like a vicious circle.
What is
That's
vicious?
That's how I see it. Like what they're saying about Sonia. Is like she thinks she does have low self-esteem. She thinks she doesn't like deserve anything, so she doesn't ask for anything. And it just cycles. And like the opposite can happen if you think you deserve everything.
Cool. Just whatever you want it to be.
Stera flower. Chapter 9.
Mm-hmm.
It was the eve of St. Nicholas, the 5th of December, 1820. Natasha had been staying at her brother's with her husband and children since early autumn. Pierre had gone to Petersburg on business of his own for 3 weeks, as he said, but had remained there nearly 7 weeks and was expected back every minute.
Obviously, someone's going to die. Otherwise, why are we still reading?
Just to find out who died? I don't know.
Like something's going to go. I'm just saying something's going to happen.
Okay.
Besides the Bezhukov family, Nicholas's old friend, the retired General Vasily Dmitrich Denisov, was staying with the Rostovs this 5th of December.
On the 6th, with his name day, when the house would be full of visitors, Nicholas knew he would have to exchange his Tartar tunic for a tailcoat and put on narrow boots with pointed toes and drive to the new church he had built and then receive visitors who would come to congratulate him, offer them refreshments, and talk about the elections of the nobility. But he considered himself entitled to spend the eve of that day in his usual way. He examined the bailiff's accounts of the village in Ryazan, which belonged to his wife's nephew, wrote 2 business letters, and walked over to the granaries, cattle yards, and stables before dinner. Having taken precautions against the general drunkenness to be expected on the morrow because it was a great saint's day, he returned to dinner, and without having time for a private talk with his wife, sat down at the long table laid for 20 persons, at which the whole household had assembled. At that table were his mother's old lady companion Belova.
Who?
You know, Belova.
Who's been there the whole time?
Yes, so.
Okay.
She's just an old lady. Yeah, really. You know, yeah, she's always there.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of her even once.
If this was like a movie, that would be a really great moment.
Like the camera's
It's
just
like,
never
sorry,
panned
who are
over
you?
there.
And she's like, I'm Belova. I've been here the whole time.
Long-time companion of your mother?
Yeah. And then it like cuts to all the scenes of the mother and like
she's
she
just like in the background. She's like,
it'd be so good to be cast as Belova.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Their 3 children with their governess and tutor. His wife's nephew was with his tutor, Sonia, Denisov, Natasha. Her 3 children, their governess, and old Michael Ivanovich, the late prince's architect, who was living... Huh?
Fucking architect's still there.
Wait. Oh, yeah. He's been there the whole time. Why do they just keep an architect around?
You know, you never know.
Ugh. Who was living on in retirement at Bald Hills. What a cozy existence.
I know.
Do you think he pays rent? Or they're just like, stay?
Oh, the architect?
Yeah.
Nah. Countess Mary sat at the other end of the table. When her so the way it goes is that you never pay for anything, but then you are beholden to the people who pay for everything
forever.
Kind of, like I think that's
loyalty.
He's responsible for the serfs, but also they have to do every single thing he says.
Mm.
Countess Mary sat at the other end of the table. When her husband took his place, she concluded from the rapid manner in which, after taking up his table napkin, he pushed back the tumbler and wine glass standing before him, that he was out of humor, as was sometimes the case when he came in to dinner straight from the farm, especially before the soup. He's like, I fucking didn't miss the soup again. Countess Mary well knew that mood of his, and when she herself was in a good frame of mind, quietly waited till he had had his soup, and then began to talk to him and make him admit that there was no cause for his ill humor. But today she quite forgot that, and was hurt that he should be angry with her without any reason, and she felt unhappy. She asked him where he had been. He replied. She again inquired whether everything was going well on the farm. Her unnatural tone made him wince unpleasantly, and he replied hastily.
That I'm not mistaken, thought Countess Mary. Why is he cross with me? She concluded from his tone that he was vexed with her and wished to end the conversation. She knew her remarks sounded unnatural, but could not refrain from asking some more questions.
Thanks to Denisov, the conversation at the table soon became general and lively, and she did not talk to her husband. When they left the table and went as usual to thank the old countess, Countess Mary held out her hand and kissed her husband and asked him why he was angry with her.
You always have such strange fancies. I didn't even think of being angry, he replied.
But the word always seemed to her to imply, yes, I am angry, but I won't tell you why.
Nicholas and his wife. This is weird.
What do you mean? Their marital drama?
It's just like, yeah. What is the story at this point?
What do you mean, what's the story?
Right. It just feels like the story ended and now it's like, okay, so you want to understand what happened with Cinderella and Prince Charming afterwards?
That would be way more coherent than what this is.
Okay.
I think someone's going to die.
Yeah, okay. Nicholas, why are we in this?
Because it's not over till the second epilogue sings.
I guess so. Nicholas and his wife lived together so happily that even Sonia and Sonia's there, like, what are you doing, Sonia? And the old countess, who felt jealous and would have
what do you think she should do?
Like,
just strike out on her own?
Yes.
And be like, I've got nowhere to go. I don't have any friends. I have no resources. Yeah. I'm just going to start walking and see where that takes.
I guess so. Yep.
I guess she really likes eating and having clothes.
That's her problem.
And a bed.
Yeah, okay. Could find nothing to reproach them with, but even they had their moments of antagonism. Occasionally, and it was always just after they had been happiest together, they suddenly had a feeling of estrangement and hostility, which occurred most frequently during Countess Mary's pregnancies. And this was such a time.
Well, messieurs and mesdames, said Nicholas loudly and with apparent cheerfulness. It seemed to Countess Mary that he did it on purpose to vex her. I have been on my feet since 6 this morning. Tomorrow I shall have to suffer, so today I'll go and rest.
And without a word to his wife, he went to the little sitting room and lay down on the sofa.
That's always the way, thought Countess Mary. He talks to everyone except me. I see that I am repulsive to him, especially when I am in this condition. She looked down at her expanded figure and in the glass at her pale, sallow, emaciated face, in which her eyes now looked larger than ever.
and everything annoyed her. Denisov's shouting and laughter, Natasha's talk, and especially a quick glance Sonia gave her.
Oh, oh my God. What if the person who's gonna die is Sonia because Mary's gonna bash
It's just
her
a
with
murder.
Yeah.
And then Nicholas was like, yeah, you want to tell me about controlling your anger?
Well, she's just got blood. Sonia was always the first excuse Countess Mary found for feeling irritated.
Having sat a while with her visitors without understanding anything of what they were saying, she softly left the room and went to the nursery.
Wait, what about now that like the two characters you think you would play and that you love the most are both like in the story? How are you feeling over there?
What do you mean?
Just like with this drama between you and yourself.
Totally get it. That's why she's annoying to her. Fully, that's what I thought. I was like, yeah, of course. She gets it.
The children were playing at Going to Moscow in a carriage made of chairs and invited her to go with them. She sat down and played with them a little, but the thought of her husband and his unreasonable crossness worried her. She got up and, walking on tiptoe with difficulty, went to the small sitting room.
Perhaps he is not asleep. I'll have an explanation with him, she said to herself. Little Andrew, her eldest boy,
No!
imitating his mother, followed her on tiptoe. She did not notice him. So good at tiptoe.
Mary dear, I think he is asleep. He was so tired, said Sonia, meeting her in the large sitting room. It seemed to Countess Mary that she crossed her path everywhere. Andrew may wake him.
Countess Mary looked round, saw little Andrew following her, felt that Sonia was right, and for that very reason flushed, and with evident difficulty refrained from saying something harsh. She made no reply, but to avoid obeying Sonia, beckoned to Andrew to follow her quietly and went to the door. Sonia went away by another door. From the room in which Nicholas was sleeping came the sound of his even breathing, every slightest tone of which was familiar to his wife. As she listened to it, she saw before her his smooth, handsome forehead, his mustache, and his whole face, as she had so often seen it in the stillness of the night when he slept. Nicholas suddenly moved and cleared his throat, and at that moment little Andrew shouted from outside the door, "Papa! Mama's standing here!"
What?
Countess Mary turned pale with fright and made signs to the boy. He grew silent, and quiet ensued for a moment, terrible to Countess Mary. She knew how Nicholas disliked being waked. Then through the door she heard Nicholas clearing his throat again and stirring, and his voice said crossly,
I can't get a moment's peace. Mary, is that you? Why did you bring him here?
"I only came in to look and did not notice. Forgive me."
Nicholas coughed and said no more. Countess Mary moved away from the door and took the boy back to the nursery. 5 minutes later, little black-eyed... Oh, God. We had a black eye. She took him to the nursery and he emerged with a black eye. Sorry, I'm going dark in case something's going to catch me off guard.
Mhm.
5 minutes later, little black-eyed 3-year-old Natasha, her father's pet, having learned from her brother that Papa was asleep and Mama was in the sitting room, ran to her father unobserved by her mother. The dark-eyed little girl boldly opened the creaking door, went up to the sofa with energetic steps of her sturdy little legs, and having examined the position of her father, who was asleep with his back to her, rose on tiptoe, kissed the hand which lay under his head. Nicholas turned with a tender smile on his face.
"Natasha! Natasha!" came Countess Mary's frightened whisper from the door. "Papa wants to sleep."
No, Mama, he doesn't want to sleep, said little Natasha with conviction. He's laughing.
Nicholas lowered his legs, rose, and took his daughter in his arms.
Come in, Mary, he said to his wife.
She went in and sat down by her husband.
I did not notice him following me, she said timidly. I just looked in.
Holding his little girl with one arm, Nicholas glanced at his wife and, seeing her guilty expression, put his other arm around her and kissed her hair.
May I kiss Mama? He asked Natasha.
Natasha smiled bashfully.
Again, she commanded, pointing with a peremptory gesture to the spot where Nicholas had placed the kiss.
I don't know why you think I'm cross, said Nicholas, replying to the question he knew was in his wife's mind.
You have no idea how unhappy, how lonely I feel when you are like that. It always seems to me.
Mary, don't talk nonsense. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, he said gaily. Not to be ashamed of
Shame.
yourself.
Holding his little girl with one arm, Nicholas glanced at his wife and, seeing her guilty expression, put his other arm round her and kissed her hair.
Really?
Oh my god. I'm out of the thing.
Yeah, that's way back, right?
No, I'm out of the frame as well.
Oh. What you doing?
Yeah, I was messed up. It seems to be that you can't love me, that I'm so plain always, and now in this condition.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Oh, how absurd you are. It is not beauty that endears, it's love that makes us see beauty. It is only Malvinus and women of that kind who are loved for their beauty.
What?
You're not beautiful. Is that what you say?
Yeah.
But I love you.
Yeah.
But do I love my wife? I don't love her, but I don't know how to put it.
What?
Without you, or when something comes between us like this, I seem lost and can't do anything. Now, do I love my finger? I don't love it, but just try to cut it off.
I'm not like that myself. But I understand. So you're not angry with me?
Awfully angry, he said, smiling and getting up. And smoothing his hair, he began to pace the room.
Do you know, Mary, what I've been thinking? He began, immediately thinking aloud in his wife's presence, now that they had made up.
He did not ask if she was ready to listen to him. He did not care.
Cool.
A thought had occurred to him, and so it belonged to her also.
Great.
And he told her of his intention to persuade Pierre to stay with them till spring.
Countess Mary listened till he had finished, made some remark, and in her turn began thinking aloud. Her thoughts were about the children.
You can see the woman in her already, she said in French, pointing to little Natasha. You reproach us women with being illogical. Here's our logic. I say, Papa wants to sleep. But she says, no, he's laughing. And she was right. And Countess Mary with a happy smile.
Yes, yes. And Nicholas, taking his little daughter in his strong hand, lifted her high, placed her on his shoulder, held her by the legs, and paced the room with her. There was an expression of carefree happiness on the faces of both father and daughter.
You know you may be unfair. You are too fond of this one, his wife whispered in French.
Yes, but what am I to do? I try not to show.
At that moment.
But the other ones are so stupid.
I know. Don't have a feeling. That moment they heard the sound of the door pulley and footsteps in the hall and anteroom as if someone had arrived.
Somebody has come.
I am sure it is Pierre. I will go and see, said Countess Mary and left the room.
What do you want to bet it's someone to say that Pierre's dead?
I don't think he's dead. I
Okay.
think this is just going to be like,
Okay.
I don't know, prairie home companion.
Okay, there's no complaints for me. That's it. In our accents, Nicholas allowed himself to give his daughter a gallop round the room. Out of breath, he took the laughing child quickly from his shoulder and pressed her to his heart. His capers reminded him of dancing, and looking at the child's round, happy little face, he thought of what she would be like when he was an old man, taking her into society and dancing the mazurka with her as his old father had danced Daniel Cooper with his daughter.
It is he, Nicholas, said Countess Mary, re-entering the room a few minutes later. Now our Natasha has come to life. You should have seen her ecstasy and how we caught it for having stayed away so long. Well, come along now, quick. It's time you two were parted, she added, looking smilingly at the little girl who clung to her father.
Nicholas went out holding the child by the hand.
Countess Mary remained in the sitting room.
I should never have believed that one could be so happy, she whispered to herself. A smile lit up her face, but at the same time she sighed, and her deep eyes expressed quiet sadness, as though she felt through her happiness that there is another sort of happiness unattainable in this life, and of which she involuntarily thought of in that instant. The kind of happiness that comes from being unhappy?
She was like, I'm so happy. And then she got sad because she knew there was another kind of happiness that was better.
So she's gotten
She's
really greedy, really.
Kind of. Maybe it's like that it's fleeting. Like life is so good now that it can pass. And there's another kind of happiness that isn't.
I thought the other kind of happiness was like basically being one with Oh God.
Me too. Where's God?
I know.
She's just embroidering
They don't
away.
have time for it. They don't have time for each other anymore.
I thought she was gonna become like a phenom. Like she's gonna be like she was gonna be that person with the serfs and all that. No, she just became a wife and a mother.
That's why she's so empty now.
Why she's empty?
That's why she's so full, but then they're after quite empty. There's some emptiness. That's what the thing ended with.
Yeah.
Right?
But what's the emptiness about?
It's about not being the other kind of happy.
Oh.
I want to be happy in the lonely way. I want to be happy in the whatever this filial way is.
Yeah. I think that's right.
Mm.
Okay. You want to stop there? Okay.
Because I have some business with a fruit or two. With a fruit or
With a
four.
fruit bowl. You should watch that documentary.
4 fruits in my fruit bowl.
It's also randomly with. Wait. It's an actor.
What? There's an actor that's a random fruit hunter?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Evan showed me this film, and he loved it. Bill Pullman.
Which one's that one? I get the Paxton and the Pullman confused. Of course it's not Bill Pullman. This guy is obviously the fruit guy.
Of course he is, right?
Yeah.
Casper.
Okay. Here I go.
Like it's so. He's just like fruit. Yeah.
Never did I ever think that there would be the kind of happiness that exists between me and fruit. I didn't eat it that much growing up.
I know. I think I might get back into fruit. That's all I ate growing up.
Really?
That's all I wanted.
Ah, yeah, you don't usually eat it that much, right?
I would
And
have
you've started to more or something. That's what
like little.
I've been thinking of asking this lady to change, we can request meal plan changes.
Mm.
And I've been thinking of asking her, is there a way to get more fruit and less?
Yeah.
Well, just more fruit. I guess I could eat it instead of the popcorn. I never have those calories.
Yeah. Especially with summer.
I know. I need my water. Where am I supposed to get water from?
Actually, that's not a bad question.
What?
If you get a lot of water from your diet, doesn't that matter?
I mean, yeah.
Is there any mention of water on this diet plan?
Yes. I'm supposed to be drinking 2 gallons a day, which I totally am not.
Right.
And one of the things when I was whining in the group, being like, is anything happen? Someone was like, I'm sure you're observing your mandatory rest day, which I did in the first week, and I'm sure you're drinking the water. And I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, I have been drinking more water, but I think that's only because maybe, yeah. I wasn't gonna do it today, and then I did.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
hope everyone's in fucking yours.
yeah, I guess so.